success. Now, I'm going to come back to this at the end of the presentation. People often ask me, why is 1114 able to be successful? I say for two reasons. One, for the stuff in this presentation. Two, you guys can ask me again at the end if there's time, and I will go into that. But that's a totally separate topic. I work for Vex Robotics. Vex does some really, really cool stuff that I'm probably not allowed to talk about here. So, moving on. Enthusiasm is one of the most powerful engines of success. When you do a thing, do it with all your might. Put your whole soul into it. Stamp it with your own personality. Be active, be energetic, be enthusiastic and faithful, and you will accomplish your object. Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. It's not really a first specific quote, it's a life specific quote, and it's something that I really believe in. But for you to succeed in life, you need to have passion in what you are trying to succeed in. I would assume that most of you are here at this conference, but you have passion for robotics, so you've got the first step. Passion for engineering, passion for learning, passion for problem solving. You have to really want to live and breathe this. To be successful in this program, it can't be a 2-hour a night sort of thing. It's got to be a full-fledged commitment, and the only reason people will commit to anything is because they really want to do it. For all you high school students there, you're thinking about what you want to do when you go into school. If you want to be successful, say you're like, yeah, first is cool, I guess, and everyone in first goes into engineering, so I'm going to go into engineering. Warning, warning, danger, danger. If you don't have the passion, you're going to be surrounded in classrooms by people who have a passion for engineering and who don't mind studying 8 hours on a Friday night. They want to study. They will do better than you because they want to be doing it. Don't ever get pigeonholed into doing something that you don't necessarily want to do. Everyone in this world has a passion. Find that passion. Gentlemen, we are going to relentlessly chase perfection, knowing full well we will not catch it, because nothing is perfect. But we are going to relentlessly chase it, because in the process we will catch excellence. I am not remotely interested in just being good. Why do I have this quote up here? I don't think anyone in this room is ever going to build the perfect first robot, unless people from Team 71 are in here. It's just not going to happen. And realistically, it's not the end of the world if you don't build the perfect robot. But what is the end of the world? Well, if you don't give it your all. Because by trying to be the best, you learn so many valuable lessons. In a 6-week build period, your mentors cannot teach you how to be an engineer. It is not possible. But what they can teach you is how to learn to be excellent, how to work to be excellent. And these skills are the skills that will take you far in life. I know I'm waxing philosophical in here. Some people were like, isn't this a presentation where Karthik tells us how to be 469? Well, we actually won't even get to that. But, because I haven't really figured that out yet. Realistically, learning how to win is a huge skill. And it's not just, like, this is why people say, oh, you shouldn't do sports, you should do first. No, do sports as well, because sports are teaching you the skills to win, how to be successful. Life is a competition, folks. I know some people out there are going to try and tell you it's not. It's BS. Can I say BS?
Sure.
Okay. Last year I didn't say BS, I said something else that didn't work out very well. I'm serious. You're going to be competing for spots at the top universities. You're going to be competing for jobs at the top engineering firms. You're going to be competing for contracts when you're working for those engineering firms. You need to be able to go out and tell someone why you are better than them. Those of you who submitted chairmans this weekend, the judge is going to ask you, why do you deserve to win the chairman's award? A lot of people will give the answer, because we do this, this, and this. You know what the judges want to hear? Why do you deserve to win the chairman's award more than every other team submitting? Now, it doesn't mean you need to go, oh, well, 11-14, they're a bunch of cheaters, like some people like to say. No, you're not going to be talking bad about people. We're going to get into another part of this, but there's two ways to compete in this world. You can rise above your opponents, or you can drag your opponents down. What is more beneficial to the whole world in the long run? That's John Agley's quote. Chairman of the board of directors at first. You know the chairman's award? That's kind of his award right now. Take that with you into your chairman's presentations, folks. Strategic design. What is strategic design? Well, I think we all know that designing and building a cool robot is a lot of fun. To me, designing and building a cool robot that does well in competition is even more fun. Sub 1241, you guys know all this stuff. Although you don't know anything about showing up places on time. They're another Canadian team. I can make fun of them like that. I just say A at the end, and it's all good. It is A. A lot of teams, kickoff comes, they watch the game animation, and they just start. They just grab tools and they start building stuff. There's no plan, there's no analysis. If you don't do analysis, you get lost. The first thing you need to do is you've got to figure out what your goal is. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I'm just a dude, just a guy over here. The clear choice is success in the competition. Other teams have other goals, and that's cool. Those are their goals. Some teams want to have the prettiest robot. Some teams want to focus on design elegance. Other teams want to have the cool factor. They want to do something crazy, like they want to, is Raul still here? Some teams wanted in 2005 to tap 15 Tetris high, even though nothing will go that high. Why? Because they wanted to be able to say they could. It was, hey, it's their design goal. It was going to satisfy them. More power to them. Beware of the cool factor. There's nothing more annoying to everyone else when you come to the competition and your robot can't do anything because you're focused on the cool factor. So if you have a design that is trying to do something really, really unique, but is constantly hurting your alliance partners, you may want to revisit that. Remember, your alliance partners you're a unit with them for that match. Always remember that. We'll talk about that later when we get into this ridiculous match throwing BS. I can say BS, right?
I'm not the authority.
No, Paul, you've got the badge on, man.
It's bad stuff, maybe.
Bad stuff, yeah. Right. Okay, next slide. Oh wait, I got the thing. What? Okay. Analyzing the game. This is a slide that I talk about normally, and I usually gloss over part of it, but this year we're going to have to pay attention to this slide. I put this slide in when I started doing this presentation about 2002, and we kind of, I'll get to it in a second. Read the rules. Please read every rule in that manual, because it's very, very important. There's always obscure ways to score points. 2008, for example, a very recent game, everyone was overwhelmed by, hey, hurdle the ball, hurdle the ball, hurdle the ball. You could score points by running laps. There was this little robot that year, a little circle, or a nonagon, just ran laps around the field, around the field, around the field. A lot of people said it was stupid. You know what they do when you say the robot's stupid? They wipe their tears with their two big blue banners. Examine every possible way to prevent your opponents from scoring. There's lots of different ways to play defense in this game. When we talk about defense, let's talk about, positive defense. I don't want to hear about the defense of, let's go and, hey, pin a team against a rack and rip their arm off intentionally. Not the kind of stuff we want to talk about. We want to talk about playing defense in an intelligent way. This year, driving side to side, covering up a goal. Great way to play defense. Very simple. You just need a drivetrain to do it. Anyone could do it. But you need to be able to consider these sorts of things. Hi, Liz. Presentation started a few minutes ago. Oh, okay, just seeing. Okay, this is the point that normally I've skipped. From 2004 to 2009, First had a very intuitive ranking system. You win matches, you get rewarded. You lose matches, hey, dude, you, authority figure. I thought you guys were just pointing at the ranking system. I saw the Clarkson dudes pointing. Are we good to go? Copacetic?
Looks good.
All right. Understand the ranking system. What I was saying, 2004, 2009, we had a very intuitive ranking system. So normally when I gave this presentation, I'm like, yeah, don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. This year was the first year in a long time. Let me tell a story. From the year 2000 to 2003, First had less than good ranking systems, where teams weren't necessarily rewarded for winning matches. Teams only were rewarded on their opponent's score. I'm going to talk a lot about advanced statistics in this presentation. I'm just going to jump all over the place. But in sabermetrics, there's something known as the Pythagorean coefficient. And basically what it's done is they've looked at the past 100 years of baseball. And they found that the most efficient way to project if a baseball team is going to succeed or not succeed is not to look at their win-loss record, but actually to look at their run differential. But not just the run differential, but the run differential factored by a Pythagorean coefficient. Anyways, the point is that looking at your own score compared to your opponent's score is always one of the best ways of figuring out how good the teams are relative to the other teams. Looking at only your opponent's score was just kind of silly. That's the way it used to be. Then in 2003, they came up with something even weirder, where you got no credit for winning the match. It was just your score plus twice the loser's score. The first community basically revolted in 2003 and said, this has got to stop. This stuff just doesn't make sense, you know? And so they did. First listened, and 2004 to 2009, we had great ranking systems. Here we are in 2010, and sometimes lessons get lost over time. So regardless, we have a new ranking system. It really doesn't matter. Going into week 1 of the season, there was no such thing as a win or loss in the qualifying rounds. It didn't exist. It wasn't even there. It was just a society construct that we were all believing in and sticking to very tightly. And that's fair. We should stick to the constructs that we have in society. You know, like, society tells me that I shouldn't murder people. Good thing to stick by. You know, there's no first rule against murder. We shouldn't be murdering people. Unless they rip your arm off. We get into this stuff, but this year there were so many teams that came to the week 1 events and didn't realize that your ranking was so dependent on what your opponents did in the match. So they were playing these defensive scrums trying to win matches 1-0, which was utterly useless to everyone in the match. Where if they just played a more open game. And it was shocking to me, because I know that in the 11-14 brainstorming session, this is the first thing we did. And we probably spent 3-4 hours on the first day going through rubrics and Monte Carlo simulations, just looking at what is the most effective scores, what is the cost-benefit analysis, you know, like, should you be working with your partners, and all sorts of things. But we looked at it mathematically. I'm not going to get into too much of the math here, but we kind of looked at it as if we were insurance adjusters and came to a resolution on it. Please, 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 every year understand the ranking system. We have a ranking system this year. I don't think it'll be back next year, but it'll be back in some form. Always understand that ranking system. It is so, so critical. I keep expecting someone to do this. All right. A chokehold strategy. Pay attention to this one. A strategy which, when executed, guarantees victory, independent of any action by your opponent. Determining if one exists should be the first step in any game analysis. Why should it be the first step? Because if you figure it out, you can dominate. First tries to design their games with no reasonable chokehold strategy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This is no easy task. Game design is not easy. I know it's easy to give the game design committee flack, but it's not. Sometimes a chokehold strategy will just kind of exist. If one exists, it will be very difficult to perform. In 2002, and as these presentations go on year to year, more people weren't around in 2002. So Beatty Hammond found a way to dominate the game by grabbing 3 goals. And there was only 3 goals on the field, and they grabbed them all and they controlled them all. Lots of teams thought of this idea. Only 3 tried it, really. Only 1 nailed it. Why didn't the other teams try? Well, let's zoom into the future, 2010. Deflecting balls. Is it a chokehold strategy? I think a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about with Team 469. Probably not a chokehold, but it's pretty effective, let me tell you. So, for those of you who don't know, what Team 469 does is they start the match, they kick 2 balls in autonomous mode, and they go and they park themselves into the tower. They exert pressure on the top of the tower so that they now have a physical lock, so you're not pushing them out. And they have these neat little funnel devices. And as the balls come down the ball return, they roll down their funnels, and then they bounce off the ramp, gaining some extra velocity on the 45-degree angle, into the goal, into the human player's hand, into the trident, down the return. You see what I'm getting at. They are finding a way to cycle balls, and with the rules, only 1 defensive robot allowed in that zone. They can't block 2 goals. It's very difficult to block the funnels, I guess, unless you're Team 217. And suddenly, there's just all sorts of mismatches happening everywhere. I'm not really here to talk about the exact strategy of it. How did 469 come up with this and the rest of us didn't? What were we doing wrong? I'll give you our anecdote from Team 11-14. We like to think that we're good at this stuff, but we clearly aren't as good as we thought. We thought of this strategy. We absolutely thought of it. We thought of it a different way. We were thinking that we would have the ball roll down our robot, and then as it comes off, it would break a through beam sensor, and then we'd kick it out of the air and go for the goal. And then we're like, are you kidding me? What are you thinking? I'll stop myself on that. But why would we try to do that? It's too hard and it's too risky. That's what we said. It is too hard because we don't think we're going to be able. We thought we could deflect the balls. We didn't think we could score them, and it's too risky. You're dependent on your partners. What happens if it doesn't work? I just realized I can't go without swearing. I have an issue. Regardless.
Your grandma's here.
Yeah. 469 was not afraid of the risk, and they were not afraid of the challenge. Kudos to them. They were smart enough to identify it, they were not scared of doing it, and they were up to the challenge. They saw this as a challenge, they wanted to do this, they wanted to prove that it could be done, and they made it happen. That, my friends, is inspiring. Whether you think it's exploiting a loophole or whatever, I don't even want to get into that discussion because stupidness makes my head hurt. It was real, it's inspiring what they've done. And if they go out and just roll through the championship this weekend, absolutely inspiring. If someone knocks them off, it's still inspiring. Very, very cool stuff. They, quote unquote, broke the game. Basics with Chokehold Strategies, try to find one single finite task that overwhelms all other possible ways of scoring. Cost-benefit analysis. For each task that you determine that exists in the game, you must compare the difficulty of accomplishment to the reward of doing so. This is where I messed up with the brainstorming process because I said, wow, the reward of doing the ball deflection strategy is huge. If you could do it, you could dominate the game. But we thought the risk was bigger than the reward, and that was the mistake. And you know what? It's not an easy call to make because 1,500 other teams made the mistake too. So you always need to think about that. You look at the task, compare the difficulty of accomplishing it to the reward for doing it. Every game has these sorts of things. I've got some older examples in here. I'm sorry I haven't updated the PowerPoint as often as I should. 2008, running laps versus hurdling. You got 4 times as many points for hurdling as running a lap. Well, how much harder was running a lap? Well, shouldn't every robot be able to run a lap? And maybe, and we're going to talk more about why you should limit yourself and why you should eliminate some strategies, but there was an easy way to rack up points. Because if you said, forget about hurdling, forget about it at all, we're just going to run laps, and we're going to spend our whole season working on autonomous mode. Let's work on trying to do 6 lines in autonomous mode and maybe have something to knock balls down. 24 points, plus another 2 points, 16 points for balls, 40 points. Guess what? 40 points would have won 88% of the matches that year. That's a pretty good record if you ask me. And that's not even including your laps in the match. You could have just focused on that. Now some people might say, well, that's boring. That goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. What are your goals in here? And if you don't want to design a boring robot, that's cool, but just remember, these are the things that you need to be looking at. Engineering is not just about building cool stuff. There's actual decisions to be made. Any designer is going through this when they're working on a project. The best tasks to perform are those which are relatively easy, yet provide big points. When we're talking about defense, remember, denying your opponents 10 points is just as good as scoring 10 points, at least in terms of win-loss. This goes back to ranking sort of stuff. In some games, now first is kind of refine their game design process where it is usually impossible to descore or very, very difficult or illegal. But in past games, there were games where a team could spend all match with this crazy mechanism to build up a stack of something. And then you could just play kindergarten and knock it over. The logical thing to do would be to play kindergarten and knock it over. Most teams figured that out in 2003, some didn't. Prioritization, I'm going to skip through this one because I don't think it's really the crux of what we're talking about here today. But basically, once you've looked at all the various tasks in the game, make a list of your desired robot qualities, make a list of your desired robot functionalities, and then sort of start ranking them. And where did I talk about trade-offs? Okay, we'll pop back to a second. What we did this year in the brainstorming process, we ranked all the things that we wanted to get done in this game from 1 to 9. The number one thing was, what do you think the number 1 rank on my priority list was this year? Wrong.
Possess the balls.
Closer, but still wrong.
Possess the balls.
Thank you. Who said that? Right there. 2337. You guys are doing good stuff. Move reliably. was our #1 priority. It is easy to say immediately what a lot of people said, score balls. But the first thing you've got to make as your #1 priority is your drivetrain. It is always your drivetrain. Get a reliable drivetrain. Our second priority then was change zones, because we felt that the game needed to be played in all zones. Some teams, this was a personal priority. This shouldn't be everyone's. Move reliably should be everyone's. But we want to change zones. So that's where we said, okay, if we want to be able to change zones well, we want a low center of gravity, we want to be able to cushion our wheels, so we came up with pneumatic wheels. Next up, a lot of people said score. No, that's the one that makes me cringe. Right now. I think 85% at first thought the #1 thing to do this year was score balls. It seems obvious. You cannot score a ball until you can control it. In basketball, you can shoot baskets all you want, but if you can't dribble, you will never make the team. I have a decent shot, if you can actually believe that. I can't dribble for the life of me. Right hand, okay, to go to the left hand, it just doesn't happen. I will never make a basketball team for a variety of reasons, but if I was in a league with midgets, I'm still not making the team because I can't dribble the ball. In breakaway, it is very, very, very difficult to be an effective scorer unless you can control the ball. You make these priority lists, and then you start deciding about trade-offs. One of the things that we said this year was the tunnel. We said it was unimportant, it was 9 on our list. What that means is we would not sacrifice any component that affected any of the things above it to go through the tunnel. Having a list like this is very important. Having a list like this in week 1 is important. It's more important to have it in week 5 when you're overweight and you're deciding to cut a subsystem. Don't ever cut 1, 2, or 3. So we said move accurately and change zones. And see, we had hanging about 5th. We had a decision to make at one point in the season because we put our hanger on and we knew before the hanger was on, we were flying over those bumps like crazy. You put the hanger on and then we all went to bed that night and we were sitting around the TV and we're talking, what if we can't climb the bumps anymore? Like, what if it's not as smooth? What if we can climb it with 75%? And we talked about it and we said, well, if we go in tomorrow and it's only 75%, we're pulling the hanger off. It wasn't as important. Having a list like this helps you make these decisions. I talked about the golden rules here, let's go back. If you're going to take anything away from this presentation, a couple things to take away. The quotes I gave you in the beginning, and the golden rules. Golden rule #1, always build within your team's limits. What are your team's limits? Well, I don't know, you gotta tell me. Evaluate your abilities and resources honestly and realistically. The limits on your team are defined by manpower, budget, and experience. These are real-world factors. You need to deal with these things. You cannot ignore them. A team of 6 kids on a budget that just paid the registration fee will have different limits than a team of 30 kids with a sponsor who's going to give them $15,000 to spend on the robot. That's the way it works in this competition. Teams are all created equal in that we all have brains and we all have ways to analyze this game. But there are actual limits, so you need to stay within them. If you try to reach outside your limits, that is when danger happens. Picture a scenario where there's Team A and Team B, down the street from each other. Team A's been doing first for 7 years. They've got mentors who are experienced. They've learned a lot. Team B's in their 2nd year. Team A and Team B, their schools have a rivalry in football, and it's always close games and whatever. And that rivalry is kind of blurred into robotics. Team A comes out and they start designing this crazy robot this year that's going to possess balls, kick balls, and hang. Team B's like, oh, Team A's doing that, we should do that too. Because they want to compete with Team A. Careful. Maybe Team B should build something simpler. So Karthik, are you saying Team B shouldn't compete with Team A? No. In this game, if Team B perfects the simple robot, and Team A gets 85% of the complex robot, Team B may very well be better. By staying within your own limits, it allows you to have more success. Golden rule #2. Say I walk on down to the robot store with, and I can spend up to 30 units on robots. It is better to have, and all robot functions are rated from 0 to 10. It's better to have 3 functions at 10 out of 10 than 5 at 6 out of 10. The jack of all trades is the master of none. Focus on something. Be really, really good. An example this year would be teams who focused on just being a home zone scorer. They said, that's all we're going to work on. We're not even going to try and kick over the bump. We're not even going to go over the bump. We're just going to be a tunnel bot, low to the ground, scoring from home. I predict one team like that this weekend is going to be a world champion. I think that other teams who are trying to do the 3-zone game, fly around the field and all, they'll be a world champion like them too. But there's also going to be a whole lot of them who aren't making the elimination rounds. Specializing is not a bad thing. How do you figure out what to specialize in? Go back like 8 or 10 slides when we talked about analyzing the game. Find a niche. Establish yourself in that niche. So many teams fail on golden rule 1 and 2. Here's a team, there's a team out there. They've never lost a regional event. Never lost a regional event. Their budget is slim. They have 2 mentors and some very, very savvy kids. Team 2056. Why do they continually win and succeed? They live by this. They live and breathe this. 2007, didn't bother trying to put tubes on the top row, didn't bother with the ramp. Didn't affect them. 2008, they saw that their neighbors were launching trackballs across the field. Just got them over. 2009, they thought about doing a turret. They wanted to do a turret. They said, forget it. Let's just dump the balls. 2010, they wanted to do like a ball magnet. They figured, oh, I don't think we can do it. They came up with a neat roller that can only grab the ball for 2 seconds. It works. Simplifying is, they're like proof that it works. I mentioned them as an example more teams would know about, but in Canada we got a few teams like this. This one team, 2200, last year. All they did was they put on this really fast roller and they just gobbled up empty cells. And they just delivered empty cells. And they were finalists at the Waterloo Regional. If they had tried to do more, they couldn't have. The team's $20,000 in debt. They have no money. They have virtually no school support, no machining resources. Most of their robot was made from bedding material from Walmart. But they stayed simple and they succeeded because of it. While a whole bunch of other teams, I'll use Canada as an example, I see these teams come to events every year and I just kind of cringe. I'm like, why are you trying to do all this? Because they're trying to play a game that they're not suited to play. It's like me trying to dunk on a 10-foot basketball net. Guys, it's not happening. I need to lower the net to 7 feet. I can dunk on it. I can put a video up on YouTube. People won't even realize I'm going to look kind of cool. Or at least my mom says so. Trade-offs. Try to maximize functionality with simple additions or modifications to mechanisms. If you could make your mechanism do 2 things, that's really, really neat. A recent example, well, not this year, a robot. So we wanted to be able to hang. We wanted to be able to hang quickly. So we thought of different ways of adding a 2-motor gearbox on the hanger. Well, we got an idea from 2004, where Team 60 and 254, that was a hanging game as well. They didn't want to add extra motors to hang. They didn't have extra motors to hang, so what did they do? They used their drive motors to power their hanger. Because usually when you're hanging, you're not driving around the field. Why not create a device that switches it off? It's not easy. This is something that you've got to evaluate your resources and your design abilities. But finding ways to maximize what you can do with one mechanism is a really, really cool thing. Teams in 2008 who used their same launcher to knock balls off the overpass, instead of having other teams have like pokers coming out. It's one less thing that can break down, one less thing that you need to design. It's a really neat way to do it. When making your trade-offs, remember your initial priorities. Always let your strategic priorities dictate design. The human body, we have a tailbone. Why do we have a tailbone? Something that happened like millions of years ago. That's why we have a tailbone. It doesn't need to be there anymore. There's a lot of first robots that have tailbones because they put something on the robot early in the year, they changed their priorities, but it still exists and it's extra weight on the robot. Get rid of your tailbones. Look through your priorities. This strategic analysis is a must. There's a tendency to skip the stage. Please don't do it. It's what I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Everyone wants to just start building, just start building. You need to think this stuff out if you want to succeed. You need to figure out what your goals are, what's important to the game, and how you're going to accomplish them. It's very, Wayne Gretzky like, you must know what you want to do before you can figure out how to do it. Wayne Gretzky always used to say, I don't go to where the puck is, I'm going to go to where the puck is going to be. If you want to do something, you actually need to know what it is before you can figure out how to do it. Be realistic when evaluating strategies. I'm going to talk about this more in scouting. the Chief Delphi web forums just amuse me sometimes through the stuff you see on there, or just even the conversations in the pit. You're gonna walk around the pit this weekend, and you're gonna be like, so how many balls a match do you guys score on average? And some teams a lot of teams are gonna say 8 or 9. You know how many teams, on average, their alliances scored 8 or 9 points per match? It's like 50 total. Teams lose track when evaluating strategies. Be realistic. 2008 was a great one. Everyone's like, oh, well, yeah, we hurdle 8 times a match. No, we don't hurdle 8 times a match. If you hurdle 3 times a match consistently, you are one of the best teams at first. Be realistic, and you can go far. Also, remember, you have partners in your matches. It's okay to depend on them for certain tasks. However, be careful not to leave too much in your partner's hands. Before we go into the scouting section, are there any questions on this stuff? Any discussion points you want to bring up? I'd like to make this more interactive as opposed to me just talking. Examples of stuff? Sure, right over there.
Golden rule 1 and 2, we start that way every year.
Okay.
Every year we start that way. And when all is said and done, we still try and do everything because there's conflict and debate and we want to, you know what I mean? Who makes that final decision? Does the leader just come in and say, this is what we're doing?
Did John B. Noon plant you in here?
No.
Because we're going to be discussing that at 7:15. We're going to be discussing that at 7:15 p.m. the roundtable that's going on here. Compromise during the design process.
Okay.
And it'll be covered in much more detail and eloquence than I can possibly do right now. But when your team comes to a consensus on your design, hopefully you've come to a consensus on your design priorities. And then you've gotten into your golden rules. So how did you move from consensus to argument is the question that I would ask. And it would be try to re-achieve consensus. But we'll talk about that a lot more. And I'm not trying to blow you off, I just think there's going to be a whole panel of people much wiser than I am who can answer that question. Any others? Okay, we'll move right into scouting. What time is it, Carl?
It's
1:40.
Okay.
I had a question for you. What's the average score this year for a team, based on your data?
No. I don't roll it off the top of my head, but I'm going to say 5 for an alliance.
No, I'm saying for an individual team.
For an individual team, divide that by 3, 1.7. Yeah, you hang every match, you're above average. Like, it might even be lower than that. Like, if you're looking at, when we talk about advanced statistics, Ben, you should bring a laptop. We should make a web version of this thing next year. Can you tell Roberto to do that? Thanks. Yeah, it's low. It is very, very low. Like, it's scary how low the numbers are every year. People don't realize. I'm gonna skip that next thought. That's one of the ones that's gonna get the presentation, not put on the web. Skip that guy. Yeah. I heard a question. Oh, sorry.
Early on, you were talking about going through and doing your analysis on what you felt an average score or a maximum score where you want to be scoring at. Would you share your numbers on where you felt that the scoring level would go for this year?
We thought that the average score in a match, we thought the average score would probably be like 6-4, 6-3. That's what we felt. So we were pretty accurate. The people from that weird state up north kind of messed everything up with their state championship, but their state championship's an anomaly. It's different. It's different. You have teams who practice for 2 events, and and it's already the strongest region in all of first, and then you've just cut out the bottom half of it for 1 event. So I'm not being rude, but you literally did a point system to determine who the top half is and the bottom half, and the top half went on and played. It's why it's called a championship, unlike our invitational this weekend. I'm gonna get this presentation not making it on the web at all.
So then for your team, do you strive to build a machine then that can reach the 6 of the 6-4?
Oh no, not even close. We have evaluated our resources and our experience, and we want to make sure that we can be doubling the average.
Okay.
Because we feel if you're doubling the average or more, that's your ticket towards Einstein. Going back to the very first slide, we are chasing perfection. But not everyone should be doing that. And for example, if we misevaluated these strategies and we were trying to go for scores of 18 or 19, we would have messed up and we would be in danger. We would have tried to do something ridiculous. 2003, here's an example, 11-14, their rookie year. Totally messed up. And they went stacking bins. They could stack bins 12 high if they wanted to. You didn't need to have to build a stack ever. So they went 12 higher than they needed to. So it is if you mess up this analysis, you can lead yourself down a dangerous path. It's better to underestimate than overestimate. Is there a team here in a purple shirt? Because there's someone in a purple shirt looking for you at the door. And now she's wondering why everyone's looking at her. Scouty! This is like my favorite. This is the good stuff. All you robot designers, get out of here.
Amen.
An area that is often neglected by many teams. When you get to the competition, today, tomorrow, especially tomorrow, because you only got like 5 hours to work on your robot, you can't make your robot any better. It's done. It's over. How are you going to get a leg up on the competition? You're going to analyze everything they do, and you're going to figure out how they're doing it and how to counteract it. And you do that by scouting. You scout for 2 reasons. You want to predict your opponent's strategy for future matches, and it's absolutely essential in alliance picking. I always say, I MC the Canadian events, and one of the things I say is, competitions are typically won and lost during the alliance selection. Teams make terrible decisions, or teams make great decisions. I found a great decision one team could make would be to never accept Team 25 at IRI. Thought I'd throw it out there, Sean. You know we love you guys. Advanced scouting, okay, this is the cool stuff. Maybe if I ever get my act into gear, this is what I'd be doing for a living. You know, you can do stuff in advance, you can look at videos and stuff, and that's conventional, that's intelligent, it makes sense. But other stuff you can do is you can analyze data, because we know the scores of all the matches. If you can't, sit on my passport, no customs doesn't mind. You can't possibly watch the video from every single regional. It's impossible. First of all, it doesn't exist. You can have half of them because people live in backwards times. They can't plug in a video recorder. But seriously, is it that difficult to get one person at every event to record this stuff and put it online? Wait, it was that difficult to get people to tell me the alliance selection results at every event. You have all these scores. You cannot see every match. So let's go to the world of sports. This is the only reason I started doing first in high school. It's an interesting story. Is that I was, a sports fan, and a very wise high school teacher, who I'll tell you his name in a second, came up to me. He's like, "Hey, you want to join the robotics team?" I looked at him. I said, "No." He's like, "No, I think you'd be good at this. You're smart. You're getting good marks. I hear you're really into sports stuff." I'm like, "I really don't want it." He's like, "Check it out. It's very sports-like. It's like you're an offensive coordinator for a football team, and I'll keep the vice principals off your back." Okay, so I went with it. And I found out, wait a second, this is my chance to be like the offensive coordinator for a football team, to break things down, to analyze the strategy. And one of the coolest things that started happening in sports in the late 1990s was they started looking at advanced statistics. Instead of just saying, well, a good way to analyze a baseball player is to see how many runs he drives in. Well, it's a dumb stat. It's a context-driven stat. You look at RBI, well, it only depends on who's on base in front of you. It's not telling you what your worth is. So they started looking at more advanced statistics. In the NBA, you have 5 basketball players on the court. How do you tell who's a good player without watching every single game? Well, if you had no statistics, people would watch a game, and you could tell who the best player is. You would know LeBron James is the best player. You could just see him overwhelming. But is the 8th best player better than the 9th best player? I don't know. You could watch every game and you still might not know. There's people who are paid millions of dollars to figure this out, and they get fired every 3 years. Yeah, because they have no idea. What they're doing with advanced statistics in basketball is something called the adjusted plus minus, where you take every moment a player is on the court with another player. Becky, are you falling asleep? He's a Simba. I'm going to put you on a timeout. But seriously, you look at every single minute the player is on the court. You drive a mathematical equation. Coefficient times player A plus coefficient times player B, blah, 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 equals points scored. And then you just set up, this is actually what they do. They set up this huge matrix, and then they solve, and you have the adjusted plus minus. And some NBA teams have been using these stats for years. They didn't tell anyone about it because they're very competitive. It's not the graciously professional society that we have here. They kept it to themselves, their advanced stats. And these teams started succeeding. And they started bringing in players that no one thought was very good. But they bring them to their team and they would succeed. Because they didn't have the conventional stats, but they were doing really well. Because they found a new way to analyze things. And this is what we're starting to see in the first world. Team 11-14, we started doing this in 2004. We tried publishing our results for this in 2005, 2006, and then we got vilified. Oh, you said our team sucks. No, we just gave a mathematical analysis with no opinion, and it said that your team more or less won. It doesn't mean your team sucks. You can analyze the data for what it's worth. So then we stopped publishing our data because, enough people don't like us already. So, thank you. So then more people started seeing what we're doing because there's a stat that what you do is, it's really simple. No, it's not really simple, but it's a good concept. Teams play in matches. The Killer Bees, 25 and 71 play in a match, and they score 75 points. The Killer Bees, 25 and another team, and they score 3 points. Oh, wait a second. Maybe the switch from 71 to the other team. Because at first you're like, wow, the Killer Bees and 25 and 71 are all awesome. Maybe it was 71. Just using you guys as examples, you're right here. Well, that's like a one-off isolated thing. You throw all these results into one big matrix. I'm going to skip over some linear algebra here because I know we have some people who aren't familiar with it. You solve the matrix, and boom, 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 boom. You have expected values for teams. It is a very useful stat sometimes. Can someone give me an example why it wouldn't have been a useful stat in lunacy?
Different human players.
Your
Partially.
goal is what?
Pardon?
Your goal is your opponent, so it depends on who your opponent was because of them moving.
Absolutely. Some games, your offensive output isn't just dependent on your offensive ability. In a game where it's defense dependent. Also, lunacy was a bad game. It was very random. Random things happened. 54% of the points in lunacy were not scored by robots. So it was just very, very random strength. Breakaway, whether it was a good game or not, was what I define as a separable game. You could isolate a team and figure out how many points that they were really worth. And breakaway, you basically weren't allowed to play defense at all. And as such, stats like
Overdrive.
Thank you, Overdrive, 2008, Overdrive. So stats like we call it calculated contribution, the Chief Delphi community calls it offensive power ranking, was very, very useful. Breakaway, more separable than Overdrive, less separable than breakaway. These stats can be useful. Your mileage may vary. It's all about how you analyze the statistics. Don't ever blindly accept statistics. Please, please don't. Because it's easy to distort statistics. Like, for example, a politician, if they want to show that the economy is growing, they just shrink the scale so the graph is really thin, and then it's going straight up. If I want to show the economy is not growing as much, I stretch the graph out. It's now flat. It's as simple as that. And the general public, or the as I tend to call them, will buy it. Never just accept stats. Don't accept these stats that I'm telling you. Go do some research on them, figure them out, and see if you like them. But all the data is out there. It's up to you to use them. And I'm telling you this, if you go into a job interview with like a financial company, a bank, an insurance company, and they said, so you did this first robotics thing, I don't really see how that applies to what we're doing here. And you tell them that you did regression analysis to forecast variables as a high school student, you'll be driving a Mercedes by the time you're 30. That's a guarantee. Here's how it works. I just kind of talked through this. I forgot that I put the slide in. Pretty neat of me that I did that. This will all be up on the web. If you want to talk afterwards more about advanced statistics and sabermetrics and how it applies to the sports world, there's actually a bunch of really great papers posted at the Sloan Sports Conference at MIT recently. I suggest you look some of that stuff and do, because there's not much information on first advanced stats, but basketball and baseball advanced stats, there are books upon books upon books. If you find this stuff interesting, go read those books. You may not be a sports fan now, you will be a sports fan later. It kind of kills me because, you know, I'm a bit of a baseball purist, but there's a good section of baseball that's being taken over by annoying stats nerds. And if you want to be one of those people, there's money to be made, or there's just a lot of fun to be had. You will get mocked a lot. Okay, pit scouting. It's basically done. I'm sorry, but is there anything more annoying when you're working on your robot and someone comes up to you and is like, so how many wheels do you have? What, did you miss Sesame Street? They're right there. when we do our pit scouting, we go to every pit and we write down things that we think are important, but we don't bombard people with dumb questions. Oh, I said ask questions? No. Map scouting. This is where it's really, really important. If you want to figure out what your opponents are going to do, whether they're with you or against you, keep track of everything. Except, it is better to keep track of quantitative data over qualitative data. Because if you say, well, how well good of an offensive robot is this? Please evaluate on a scale of 1 to 10. And you have 6 different scouts doing it, doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing. I want to know this year I want to know how many balls did they score? How many balls did they not score but cleared 2 zones, what we define as a 2-zone pass? How many cleared 1 zone? How many times did they go over the bump? How many times did they go through a tunnel? Did they hang? How long did it take them to hang? Where did they hang from? These are things, quantitative, you can put right down on a sheet, no one can argue with. In 2008, here's something that was really, really cool. If you did stats, you could figure out how many points each team scored for the alliance. And it was actually points being scored. You do their OPR, and you run a coefficient of them, the R-squared value was 0.85. It was like bang on. That told you that OPR was working. This year, here's why OPR is really, really neat. Name a really good mid-zone robot this year. Someone.
1114.
Okay. Give me an example, not 11-14. Give me an example of a good mid-zone robot who doesn't necessarily score for mid, but they pass a lot of balls in. 17-18, right there, fighting pie. And a really good home zone robot. 9-10, fully freeze? Fully freeze. Okay, guys. It's not the point. So 9-10 and 17-18 are playing together in a match. At the end of the match, you see, wow, 9-10 scored 10 balls this match. 17-18 only scored 1. Okay, let's file the scouting sheets. You go to your pick list meeting, well, 9-10 scoring like crazy, 17-18 isn't. Wait a second. You need to fix this gap. 2 ways of doing it. We created the pass statistic. Some people would consider a pass a missed shot a bad thing. We think balls cleared into a zone, whether they go in or not, are good things. If you use OPR, it will figure out that, wait a second, well, this isn't how math works. Variables don't talk to each other. But if they did, the variables would be like, wait a second, every single equation that 17-18 is in has a high score. Doesn't even matter who they're with. Maybe they're more valuable than these other teams. And it'll bust it out. And 17-18 does remarkably well in these stats. See, you picked one out and it actually worked. So it's neat because you can figure out the intangible value. In the NBA, Shane Battier for the Houston Rockets doesn't score very much, but has come to be known as one of the best defensive players in the NBA. Before there was no real stat to measure Shane Battier's value. And he did poorly across the board in these stats, except for adjusted plus minus. Because whenever Shane Battier showed up on the court, his teams did better. And that's what you can do with these sorts of stats, and that's really, really important when you're trying to find a second pick. Yep?
And don't you think that maybe using the data will help you as an individual team find what other individual team you should be picking?
Absolutely.
Because unlike in 2009, let's say, when you just wanted to score balls, this year you want to find someone who complements the abilities of your robot.
Absolutely. You've nailed it. Every year, 23-37 send someone to these presentations and they impress me more and more and more. So it's just a matter of time until you guys win Michigan State Championship. And then maybe the fake championship we have here. Yep, and then Jesse in a minute.
Using quantitative data, how do you scout defense? is there a way to do it, or is there ways that you have found that work better than others? Or?
Hey, Jeff, you want to come up to the front? This is Roberto's cousin, Jeff Allen. He's like the main scout for 1114, so he might be able to. Yeah, he's wearing a 2056 sweater because they felt bad and gave it to him because we picked them enough times. Jeff, what do you think the best way to quantitatively scout defense? There's a mic beside you.
I guess a lot of, is this on? Yep. Okay. I guess a lot of it depends on the year. This year, I guess it's tougher because the way the scoring system working, you can't really just look at goals against or goals for because so much of that is taken into account, like when we intentionally score for the other team or whatever. Saying that, we do our calculated contribution, which we think, if you look at the defensive side of it, it can have some aspect of sort of the average amount of goals let up by a team.
And what Jeff basically is saying is the equations we talked about earlier, where it's your 3 teams on the alliance equals your score, run the exact same matrix except put your opponent's score in as your solution set, as your Y by 1 matrix.
Yeah.
But I think with defensive scouting, really there hasn't been a game where you can just rely on the quantitative. I think it's at a point where you still need to be relying on the qualitative. In fact, now, trust your eyes, trust what you can see. What did I talk about earlier? If you had no stats, but you watched a basketball game, you would know that LeBron James is the best player out there. You would know that Dwight Howard is the best defensive player out there. Trust your eyes on these sorts of things. These stats help you find more advanced things. Little interesting note, there was a team this year at a regional that we were not even attending. And they said, can you help us with your pick list on the Friday night? And we sent them a list. And they pretty much used it and came very, very close to winning that event. I'm not going to tell you who the team is, but we literally generated a list based on advanced stats for them. And it worked pretty well. You can do some neat things. They combined their qualitative observations with our quantitative data just based on the scores on the first website. And yeah.
I was going to say this year, actually, based on the game, there were a couple things we could look at defensively. Like we were looking at sort of the amount of times you can change zones, I think was a good indicator of defensive flexibility. Because if you pick someone who's just stuck in one zone, you're limited to their defensive contributions. As well, if you were looking at a high scoring team and you saw that they put up low numbers in one match, maybe it was a case of they had broken down, but if it was a case of, it's one team that qualitatively you saw always played defensively pretty well, and they happened to be in the match paired up against this elite scoring team, maybe you could attribute that to defensive success as well.
All right, we're running up on the end of time here. I don't mind cutting through John's presentation a little bit. We're still working on it at the hotel. I'm just going to open it up to questions. So strategy questions, anything you've seen in this presentation, anything you want to discuss in general. Jesse.
Qualitatively, how do you do reliability? I mean, sometimes LeBron James has a bad match or a bad game, but you still know he's the best player out there.
Standard deviation. The best way of looking at it was, okay, I'm the number 1 seed at the event. I'm feeling very comfortable. I'm going to look for a team that, let's go back to overdrive, because I'm not overdrive. Breakaway, overdrive, laps, hurdling. Yeah, overdrive, NASCAR. That was my favorite game. I want that team who, when I look at their hurdles per match, goes 3-4, 3-4, 3-3. That's the team I want. I'm the 8th seed. I know I'm playing the crazy number 1 seed. I don't want the 3-4, 3-4, 3-4. I know I need more hurdles, so I'll take a risk to take the 0-0-0-7-3-1. So that would be the best way of looking at it. It's very easy to get bogged down in averages because you generate a spreadsheet, a database, and you look at the average stats. Don't always trust the averages. Look at the match by match. Over here.
In a similar line to what you're saying there, most of these teams are continually improving during the course of event to event and even during an event, constantly fixing things. So maybe you can't climb the bump at the beginning, but at the end you're climbing, or you can't kick over and then later on you're kicking. So how do you factor that in? When you put the raw numbers, it all washes down. You don't see that data. It just looks like you're
look at trends. Look at trends. See if they're going upward throughout the weekend, downwards throughout the weekend. We usually have a different scouting process on Saturday than we do on Friday. We make a list on Friday, and then on Saturday we take the list and we perturb it, bubble up, bubble down based on performance. So Saturday stuff automatically becomes more heavily weighted, and so that's important. Be careful. Don't weigh Saturday results too heavily, or you will lose events. We did it once. 2007 Great Lakes Regional. We saw a team that double lifted twice on Saturday. We said, hey, let's take a risk and pick them, and then their battery fell out 2 matches in a row, and it was just awful. Because they were terrible on Friday, and we ignored that for whatever reason, and it was a huge, huge mistake. And that was an upset. That was 11-14 and 67, losing the Great Lakes Regional together. So mistakes happen if you focus too much on the latter stuff.
What does a scouting team look like for you? I mean, how many